Hello and welcome to CIO Leadership Live in ASEAN. My name is James Henderson, Editorial Director of CIO based in Singapore, and I'll be your host today as we welcome Axel Winter, Chief Digital Officer at Siam Piwat Group, a Bangkok-based luxury mall operator, and of course, our CIO 75 honoree in 2021. Axel, how are you? How's Bangkok?
Hi, Jim. Doing extremely well. Thank you very much. Just through the Thai New Year. So it was a bit of a good break in the year, and now back to 24/7, I guess.
Yeah, back to the grind.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. Now, we know there's a lot of innovation taking place across Thailand and across multiple sectors, and of course ASEAN. So there's obviously a focus and a shift on to technology, but it would be good to almost park that a little bit and look at the other side of the coin in terms of culture and how that's evolving in this era of transformation. So given your unique position in terms of the roles that you've held and the expertise that you have, how is culture evolving as everyone seems to be innovating?
Yeah, I see. This is actually also a bit of a quote unquote hobby for me. The thing is that everybody talks about digital transformation, which is important, right? Everybody talks about innovation, taking the next S curve, but then one of the really key enablers for this is the capability in the organization, right? And so you have to attract people and keep them ideally in the organization. And then what we find is, and also the many different people across the region I work with and are in my network, they value mostly culture. And literally, if they feel they come into, we see all the negatives when we browse LinkedIn leadership advice of what not to do is don't create a culture of fear and this and that. But these companies are still partially there. I mean, no, not intentionally, obviously, but there are people or organizations who haven't changed for 20, 30, 40 years or have changed little. And then, of course, if you have people who come from a startup or a startup-ish like environment and a corporate, who go there, then it's not so simple, right? And there is a bit of a culture clash, and that creates a lot of problems. So my reckoning is of many discussions over the last 6 months that the biggest issue corporations have is dealing with employee culture. And it actually prevents them of building in-house capability, making them reliant on external parties and partners.
That's a great point you mentioned. It's the best way to phrase it, Axel, the culture clash between the startups and the multinationals that have been around for a long time. And we'll get into that, especially when we talk about talent. But just on the topic of culture, is there a definition that exists? If we were to look this up in the dictionary, well, I'm sure there is one, of course, but is the point that it means different things to different organizations, or is there a standard framework that people should be looking at when they look at culture?
Right. Well, I'm sure there is, and I just probably wouldn't be able to pull a link right now. But what I can tell you is from my own experience is that people don't want to work in a fearful environment, right? I mean, this is number one. And it sounds to someone who is not as close to the topic like, well, who's afraid? But actually, people tend to be afraid. If the executive suddenly, the CEO in the room, starts drilling down on deadlines, on functions, and so on, and giving this impression of things are not the way they should be, people start being afraid, right? If there is a set of silos, people are having bureaucracy, paper literally to fill out. Different teams are not sharing what they're working on. Maybe a lack of empowerment of any generation, right? So empowerment, we often as executives, we think about I'm empowered as an executive, or I empower my one downs. But actually, even a secretary, even a junior developer, they're working on something and they have a certain set of ownership, and they should be empowered within their scope to make certain decisions. And if we see this through, it creates an open atmosphere. It creates the ability for people to talk to each other, to share, not to worry, not to think about politics, about career, about is he backstabbing me, or is he or she, or is it not? I mean, again, we know the back traits, but the issue is not that if you ask people one-on-one, what do you like that they like the wrong things? No, it is that they don't understand how to come from here to there. So the executives actually I'm working with and I'm being tasked, people call me from different organizations to say, please help me to build a team. I don't know how to build a team. I said, well, let's look at the culture first. Oh, but culture is a tough problem to fix. Yeah, I know. But that's preventing you of recruiting, right? Yeah. Because people don't want to go to the old world. They want to live again. They want to live up to their potential and do a good job, right?
And to your point there, and again, I'm mindful you've got many hats in terms of looking at this, at your own team, you're advising other teams. Is there, and you touched on a few points there, is there such a thing as good culture checklist? And I'm approaching this from an editorial standpoint where I'm everything black and white and I'm very lazy and I need the answers in front of me.
Yeah.
It's a lot more nuanced than that. Do you have, when you're dealing, do you see patterns emerge of this is what good culture looks like, this is what bad culture looks like, or is it not simple?
Yeah. Well, I'd say is no fear is number one. It's really empowerment. It is giving the ability, in terms of diverse workforce, giving the ability for everyone to rise. It starts with us as executives to appoint the minus one. Is it male? Is it female? Is it transgender? Right, and so on. So people think it's not important, but again, I have tried it, and I can tell you that once you appoint, let's say, a female executive, you see suddenly the composition, diversity of the overall organization change versus male. It's really true, right? Again, and I'm happy to hear if somewhere it worked in different ways, right? I just can state from my own experience and observations that the more diverse decisions you make, the more diverse your own organization is going to be built. Empowerment is another one, especially Gen Z is very critical. Empowerment, meaning is what can I do to help achieving goals? What is my role in this overall process? I create an API. You can say it's a low-level job, but on the other side, it creates API economy, right? It creates integration. Right. How do you, A, empower the person, and B, we need to link each job, literally the mate in the office. We need to link the job spec to the bigger goal. And a lot of organizations really struggle with this linking back, right? So the goal is, I don't know, creating shareholder value as a revenue, profit, or improve productivity. If we need to make sure everybody understands how they're linking back. And then the other thing, which as far as checklist is concerned, I would add is the ability for organizations to move, for people to move around in the organization. It's such a difficult process in some organizations because it didn't happen in the past. But if you think about tech and digital innovation initiatives, typically they touch all elements of an organization, right? So actually, if you're kind of more or less on the horizontal structure, you could say, hey, it's so easy. I let you work for one business unit or for another business unit. Maybe today there's a project or some development in HR, tomorrow for sales, the other day for marketing. It does not mean that we don't build a strong skill base in areas, but it does mean that we become flexible to say, hey, if someone doesn't like his or her boss or doesn't like the work or doesn't like the colleagues in another department, why don't we let them move around? For tech people specifically, another area is they like to experiment new technologies, right? They don't mind to work on a project for 1 or 2 years, which very often happens for tech folks. But maybe we have an innovation team and they can rotate in for 6 months or even 6 weeks, and they try something else for a while, right? And actually, if you step back and you think about it, are these things possible? Yes, they are. However, many organizations don't do it because they think it's difficult. But actually it's not true. It can be done.
Confusing difficulty with not understanding the process, maybe? Yes. Is that why they think it's difficult? They just don't know.
Well, two things. I think one is that very often the decision maker is let's say be an HR manager or let's say a technology leader. They may not understand all the job roles which are in his or her own organization, and I don't blame them because it becomes a tremendous complex world nowadays, right? You have a data science for search expert, you have a data science for typo expert, right? I mean, it's just like the maturity of these things is significant. And then it's not always clear each of the roles. So then making these type of decisions, and if you're not quite sure what the context of that role is, becomes more complicated, right? I think maybe there is one other thing to add. In the middle management, what we often see is they worry about the next step up to be promoted. If you have an organization, let's say of 50, for example, it's fairly difficult to have a mid-manager to be promoted every 2 years, right? Yeah. Leave alone faster. And so the part of that is also choosing the right people who focus on content rather than on, fast promotions. The other part is also encouraging people to do that, right? Hey, where is content versus where is promotion? And then also thinking a little bit through is, can we, through continuous organizational changes, also allow people to have different and better roles over time? Organizations don't have to be fixed for 10 years, not even for 2 years. Every now and then, a small shakeup in the org chart can be a good thing. Again, it sounds all very startup-ish like, but that's exactly what it should be, right? Change is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, right? This constant idea of change is how people thrive. And that's the learning. When you go to big organizations, you can go to Accenture, you can go to Citibank, Standard Chartered Bank, Central Retail, or any other larger organization. When there is an upswing in investment, if there is a new organization being built, you see change super rapidly changes because it's top-down decided. Hey, we need to do this now, right? And that is the moment where people are most excited. And they don't care about vacation, they don't care about overtime. They're just there because they love it, right? And this is the momentum we need to keep moving forward.
And actually, I'm building up to this startup and culture clash because you're right. And I know everyone who's listening will be going, tell me how I can be more like a startup. Before we get to that, because you're really hitting some great points here. You mentioned it at the start around talent and how people are obviously, everyone in Thailand, everyone in ASEAN, everyone in the world is short of talent and skills, especially in tech. Now, you mentioned earlier that, sort your culture out before you recruit, basically. So I'm guessing, how is that impacting their ability? Because there's kind of two elements, isn't it? Attraction and retention. So as you were saying there, keeping the people you've got, but also getting other people. How is culture being used as a positive tool in that? Because to your point there, it sounds like it's in the too hard box.
Yeah. I mean, the question I get in interviews is across the line. The questions I usually get is what, specifically with also junior people, talent, they're saying, hey, what is my ability to influence an idea? So if I have an idea and are you listening to me? Is the company listening to me? How can I make happen what I think should be done, right? So you have to have a good answer on that, right? And for me, this would be, yes, you speak up. We have common touch points together. We discuss ideas. We discuss things to change, to improve, to evolve. And you individually have a voice in that. Of course, you have to fight for your ideas a bit, right? I mean, it's not going to be an automatic here idea and let's do it. But if it's a good idea, we can test it with the frontline associates, or we can test it with customers, and then start going about it if it's really essentially. This is one question I get. The other is people are also often worried that this focus on tech or digital is a short-term focus, right? So what happens after a year is that, are we still with the same zest at it, the same focus on it? So again, we need a good culture. And then, of course, the question is, okay, what are my opportunities to move further? You have one initiative now, you have again the 50 people or 500 people, whatever it is, but people will ask, so what happens if I do this job correctly? What's my aspiration? But if you don't have an answer on these things, then it's going to be fairly tough to convince people on the recruitment side, right? And then things like having a nice office, having, again, being a bit low on bureaucracies, also in the recruitment process, I think they are just expected, right? So if you have a 1970 office, other than it's a retro styled office, I'd say, hey guys, think about that again.
Style it out and say it's retro, but it's really old.
Yeah, exactly. Something along the lines. So I mean, again, I still remember when Google showed off the first time their office headquarters. I think it was about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And everybody was going to Google campus in the US to look at it. And wow, and they brought pictures back. Look how the office is looking like theirs. It's just fantastic, right? And yeah, but this is what people want, obviously. And they still want it today, right? Mm-hmm. So if you see great pictures and you as an executive or owner of a company, you say, wow, this looks cool. Well, then compare it to your own office, obviously. Right. Again, it's not the only thing, but it's part of what people learn to expect nowadays.
No, it's a great point. And I mean, just on, you mentioned as well, Axel, on the diverse talent and the proof that you see when you make those decisions, it permeates down the organization. I mean, how would CIOs, chief digital officers, CTOs from a tech side, how do they integrate that diverse talent?
I don't want to say it was my ingenious idea, but I remember when I came to Central, it just happens to be that the two best people to let's say be my left and right hand in a sense, in a matter of speaking, were Thai female executives, and they did such a tremendous job. Then so it's obviously you yourself need to recognize talent, which is critically important.
As an individual, yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it is of course difficult, or you have to rely on someone helping you to interview or to find people, which is of course an option. But then it's really first of all giving the opportunity and then letting them do their job, right? Because what you don't want to do is, as the next step is, you start micromanaging them because I tell you, no one ever likes a micromanager, right? It's a myth. Nobody wants it. No one likes it. Just if you are, bug off, right? I mean, it's just not going to work ever. And it doesn't mean you don't have an opinion or you don't have detailed comments, but you just can't override every second decision someone makes. And so these are the two things in combination. And then what I saw is, in an organization of almost 500 people, we ended up with 50%, around the 50% mark of female staff, right? And again, it wasn't planned. It wasn't let's say intentionally we want 50%. It just happened to be because the two next most senior people in my organization were Thai female, right? And they did tremendous job. I mean, I'd owe them for all the achievement and the revenue that organization made, the success of my own success. In that sense, I would say is give a chance, give an opportunity, try it out, and maybe look a little bit harder, right? And not just call your let's say buddy from the last company, but just think about that a bit more.
That's the common one, isn't it? I mean, Axel, just on the startup culture, and I say it with a smile on my face because you know those large scale organizations, you hear of tribes and huddles and all of this stuff, and everyone's trying to, and they've all got. They're doing the office stuff. They're wearing sneakers and they got t-shirts and blazers on now at corporates, and that's all good, fine. But it seems to be, and just as an outside observer, the big, large organizations with thousands of tech staff are desperately trying to embrace that startup culture. I'd love to get your opinion. Firstly, is that correct? Is that happening? And secondly, can they do it?
Well, I think as far as many organizations, as far as the office is concerned and some of the styles, let's say the cosmetics, that part is being done in many, not in all, but in many organizations. Now, what is missing then is the culture, right? If I'm as a leader, not a bit of a humble leader in a sense, and admit my own mistakes and be open and transparent. I mean, just bring it back to the leadership questions. I mean, I got a question once is, hey, are you looking for another job in a town hall, right? I know that other leaders, actually my successor, he was taking all the tough questions off the list from the town hall, whereas I said, well, if Amazon offers me the global CTO role for, I don't know, 2 million, I don't know what Werner makes, I have no clue, a year. I mean, who am I to say no? I mean, it's not my company, right? So I'm an employee. So obviously I said, but am I right now interviewing or looking? No, right? So if you, I mean, it's just the truth, and anybody with common sense would say, duh, obviously, right? Yeah, and then they all, and this is what people laughed, they chuckled a bit, and they said, well, yeah, clearly same as everyone, right? And then I gave them a promise: if my opinion or my view changes, I'll let you know, right? So you know what you're on, and I stick to it. Of course, I stick to what I say.
But there's an authenticity there.
Well, and also being honest with people. Yeah, I think it's important to be transparent and honest. I remember very early Anderson Consulting days, when we reviewed together, we had an annual review of all the stuff every year, and all the management would come together. It was super transparent. We talked about professionally, objectively, about candidates' future, about their potential. And I mean, it's just the style of being transparent and open. I think that for me is also, for me personally, is critical in an organization, that I don't have to think about what is this person doing. Is he planning something? I don't want to go down the political route at all. It's a waste of time, right? Delivering shareholder value is what we need to focus on. And that means is both the management as well as every layer below must be a superb team, or you cannot progress. And people, if you don't live it as an executive team, the people know. They're not stupid. They know, right? They see it obviously that two executives are not talking to each other, right? Or they rather decline meetings because they don't like the other guy or girl, right? So I mean, we know these things happen, and that needs to be changed. That needs to be melted down. And I know it's tough, right? This is not easy always, right? But on the other side, this is what people expect, and this is what you see, not in all, but in many startups.
And that's actually a really good point, because, you know, mindful of your roles, as I mentioned before, and you've experienced all dynamics. Is that the one thing that the large scale organizations struggle the most with when you take? So if you're going to take, you know, the best of the startup culture, is that the most hardest thing for them to change, the politics because I'm guessing as you get bigger, then you lose control of that in a way.
Well, I think you would, right? And I find is that big organizations, I mean, if you, I remember Standard Chartered Bank, we had 16, 17,000 people in technology. I don't know what it is today. And you know, clearly such a big organizations, there would be differences on opinion and so on, right? Just in good intent, right? And of course, people have a career and a bonus to think about, right? I mean, this is normal, but in another way, though, the question then has to be proactive on the top of the leadership is how to change that, right? So if you're not doing it, it doesn't mean that you're not progressing. It means is that you're losing because the people don't want it. If they had their taste of like a really great working environment versus a really diehard political ecosystem, then it's very obvious what people choose. I mean, even money. I tell you, money does not make up for it. There are many consultants say, "Well, just pay double or just pay whatever," right? Well, that works for a while. I mean, again, with my experience, I also tried that. But again, people then have zero loyalty, right? When I had again in my last role, we were 500 people. It was tough in a sense. Retail can be tough. It's 24/7 business, and I mean literally New Year's Eve, big promotions, whatever, right? And then I mean we were sitting together there, and I said, people, hey, this is not important. We can do it. We can do it another weekend, or we can do it after the weekend. And they didn't listen to me. They just did it, right? They just wanted to hang back because they enjoy it. Again, I'm not saying it was all hanky-dory, but it's just people create a certain loyalty over time, and then they do what they think is right to the common goal, which should be linked to shareholder value, not to personal interest of an executive.
And final one, Axel, for you to leave us with. Given all of that, and it's a fascinating discussion, and it's one that there's so many different avenues that you can pursue.
Yes,
you know, it's so it's always evolving with the dynamics of you know what's going on in the world at the minute. What would be your advice to your peers, really, the other chief digital officers watching, the other chief technology officers and CIOs watching, as they look to address this talent problem that everyone's facing? How do you find some uniqueness and competitive differentiation there?
Right. So my first suggestion would be either in your own organization or in a startup, sit in a cubicle, sit in the bench with everyone else for a week or something, right? Or even a day if you can manage it, and just start talking to people. I mean, everybody who is coming in, everybody who is leaving. You come early to the office, you see someone sitting there, you ask the person, why are you here at 5 a.m.? Or, I mean, I'm an early bird. Actually, I'm an early and late bird. But
so you just live there then?
Kind of, sometimes, yeah. And then you just ask the question, why are you here? Or at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., or 10 p.m., whatever makes sense to you. If you see someone being there alone, why are you here, right? If someone resigns, every single person, even if you believe that person should leave because maybe the performance wasn't good, still ask the person, why are you leaving the company? What made you, what is the trigger, right? And you learn so much from talking to people. And this, for me, this is the number one question. And it's so easy if you're an executive. I mean, I have like, you have board meetings, executive meetings, business unit meetings, vendor meetings, I mean, whatever, right? So you have all excuses of the world to never meet anyone on these type of, let's say, a little bit more sensitive, difficult topics, right? But resist that urge. Go out, talk to people. I know many executives, they stay and they live with you. They maybe not even talk to junior staff. They would just ignore them, right? No, talk to them. Ask them how they are, or say a nice word, right? Just does not mean you're a pushover. This means is that you respect the person. You have, I call it always, you have a soft heart, but you're tough in the matter, right? And people respect that, right? And then you learn so much when you have these little discussions here and there. And that is what you can formulate. This is, with your executive team together, you can then formulate jointly what is the best plan to advance this culture. What should I do differently? What mistakes I am making in this for us not to progress? And then have an open discussion about this. And that's a good way to start this journey, right? Of course, you can go and hire a consultant and do this and that. And I'm not against consultants, but if you're not willing to, this is like losing weight. Yes, I can buy 10 books of how to lose weight. It's still not going to happen if I'm going to start eating half. Yeah, exactly, right? So just this, and you're laughing about it, but this is exactly what it is, right? It's not that difficult, right?
Yeah,
just be a nice guy.
Simple discipline at the start, and then you can really set yourself on the right path.
Yeah, that's my best advice.
Axel, great advice and such a great chat today, and really tackling, as I was saying to you before, tackling probably the top problem or priority for IT leaders. And we're talking in the context of technology. We could move industries and it would be probably the same. So
exactly,
some great advice and some great guidance, and really appreciate you taking the time today. So thank you very much, Axel.
No, thank you. Most appreciated.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching CIO Leadership Live in ASEAN.